We all want a quick fix, an instantaneous solution with guaranteed results, particularly when it comes to our mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health. And yet, the reality is the practices and the tools and the techniques and strategies that promote our well being oftentimes aren't all that glamorous, they're not all that instantaneous, and they take a lot of discipline, they take a lot of commitment, and they take a lot of adherence. And we don't always see fast results. Oftentimes they're very incremental, they're very subtle, and because of that it can be a bit of a hard sell. We tend to discard some of these practices, feeling like if we don't see results after 2 weeks that it just doesn't work for us, and that's not necessarily the case. And it's worth recognizing as well that everybody's journey, particularly when it comes to mental and emotional health, is subjective, individual, and very unique, and what works for one person may not necessarily work for you. And it's about playing around with things, giving them enough time to actually see if they are beneficial to you, and then finding a combination that works for your lifestyle and that ultimately helps you become the person that you want to be. Again, as I said, we're very much culturally influenced that we can have that quick fix, that we need to chase this hedonic happiness, this successful living, as opposed to finding meaning and purpose in our day-to-day activities. And consequently we feel quite drained and fatigued. We're really not all that content with who we are, what we look like, and what our life entails. And so a lot of the work is very humbling. It's about practicing acceptance, it's about recognizing the impact that your emotional drives have on your thought process and on your behaviors, recognizing the way in which your subconscious influences how you engage with the world, and really being accountable for who you are and the role you have to play in your own life. And again, we tend to approach sometimes our spiritual practice, our mental and emotional health practices, with a very set agenda of feeling good. And that's not always what they're meant to do. Yes, they contribute to feeling a higher sense of equanimity and, greater self awareness. But that being said, oftentimes a lot of these practices are all about sitting with hard truths and finding acceptance for situations or circumstances which we don't really enjoy, or we're not comfortable with, or we're trying to avoid. And we have to just sit with that. We have to learn to coexist with some of life's inevitable ups and downs, as opposed to fighting against them. And it's this continuous coming out of the head, because again, so much of our problems are created. They're a result of constructs and interpretations and assumptions and presumptions, based on what it is that we think the world reflects. Whereas if we can come out of that place and come into our hearts and try to basically focus on just showing up each day in a loving and kind manner, approaching each situation with the question, what can I do in this very moment that is kind to me and that is kind to whoever else is involved, and continuously working on awareness. What's going on for me internally, what is it that I need to attend to here. And some days this will be fairly straightforward, and other days it'll feel like the hardest thing ever, and we'll fight against it. And this is when we tend to discard our practice. However, the reality is it's never going to be all that simple. It's always going to be a challenge, because again, our default is to try to avoid pain, and part and parcel of our everyday life is a certain amount of conflict, a certain amount of pain. And it's recognizing that none of our emotions last forever, that we can always tolerate them, even if we assume that we can't. It's about recognizing that they can't actually harm you, and the more you honor them, the more you learn to sit with them and regulate them, the less likely they are to impact on your reality. And it's just putting all these small little things in place that can really make a difference to your life. It's so true what they say, that small changes done done consistently are what it's all about. So as opposed to looking to transform your life overnight, as opposed to looking to create a life where there's no pain, where you're never going to have to deal with any bullshit again, recognize that there's always going to be a little bit of suffering because it's part and parcel of life. You're always going to have ups and downs. However, what you can do is work on your resiliency. You can work on your regulation skills, and you can work on switching your focus and attention to areas which are more likely to give you a sense of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment, which are more likely to fill your day with joy and humor and play and creativity. So applying curiosity to the right areas as opposed to ruminating over things that basically do you no good whatsoever, and recognizing that in every moment there is a choice and it is down to you. I mean, ultimately, what has happened in your past, you have no control over, but you have autonomy for what it is that you act upon in your day-to-day life, you know. So not every feeling and not every experience is going to be a positive one. However, you are more than capable of turning it around and basically making it into something that allows you to reflect that mindset of learning and growth and curiosity and love and kindness at all times, you know. And even if this is just surrendering and letting things be and not fighting against it, then that is all you have to do in that moment. But again, this sounds a lot easier than it actually is, and it's recognizing that these practices are lifelong practices, that they're not quick fixes, that oftentimes we have to do them again and again. Even in the same day, you may have to revisit the same issue over and over. I mean, God knows I do. I'm a wonderful person for rumination and continuing back to the same issue and creating a problem and then looking for a solution to a problem that I made in my own head. And again, it's kind of recognizing when you're doing that and trying to pull yourself back again and again and again. And that's the practice. That's basically what it's all about. It's trying to bring yourself into that natural and I suppose beautiful state of being present, being aware, being in a state of calmness and equanimity despite what is going on around you, and being able to recognize that this too shall pass. I hope everyone has a lovely day. I'll talk to you again soon.